All right, I guess we can start. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I'm Riza Neri, the Deputy Program Coordinator of the Connecting Business Initiative, which is a joint program between OCHA, or the UN's Humanitarian Agency, and the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP. And I'm very, very happy to be your guide for today's session. So first off, thank you for taking the time. We know your schedules are super busy, and the fact that you're here really shows how much you care about doing humanitarian response better. And that's exactly what today is all about. Our session has one big goal, and it really is to show how businesses and humanitarian actors can work side by side. So, not really just with good intentions, but with real standards that make a difference in people's lives. And by the end of our conversation today, this is a 1 hour session. You'll see that SPEAR standards aren't just guidelines sitting on a shelf. So we know that they're practical tools to make sure that when we act with dignity, with fairness, and of course, with impact. We have an amazing lineup of speakers today. We have Raquel Weintraub, the network manager of Sphere. We have Farzan Hashim, the country director from the Asia Pacific Alliance for Sri Lanka, Alliance for Disaster Management Sri Lanka, and we have Cynthia Espinoza, who is the Director General of the National Center for Epidemiological Emergencies and Disasters, or CENICED. But before we jump in, a couple of quick housekeeping reminders. We do have simultaneous interpretation available, so please select your preferred language channel now with the icon below on your screen. And also, we'd love to hear from you throughout the session. Drop your thoughts and questions in the chat as we go. We'll keep an eye on them, and we'll make sure that there's also a question and answer segment in the end where we will ask to have your voices come into the discussion. So let's make this interactive, let's make it practical, and more importantly, let's make sure to have fun. So, with that, I'm delighted to hand it over to Felicity Fallon, who's the engagement director of Sphere, and who will help us set the stage for us with some welcoming remarks. Felicity, the floor is yours. Oh,
Thank you.
we can't
Thank
hear you.
you. Thank you very much, Risa. It's lovely to be here today with you all. I'd like to start by asking you to imagine a scenario. In this scenario, someone you love has been involved in a car accident and is injured. In that situation, what would you expect from the medical services? So if you can imagine somebody you love has been in a car accident, they're injured, what would you expect from the medical services? And I'm hoping that you can put down your thoughts in the chat. So please just put in the chat, what would you be expecting from medical services if there was a car accident and someone you love was injured? Okay, I can see some answers coming through the chat. Immediate care, speed, rapid response, professionalism, respect, efficiency, quick care, okay. Kindness, yeah, that's nice. No mistakes, yeah, we want them to be well trained. We want them to know what they're doing. Empathy, urgent support, professionalism. Okay, that's it. We all want our medical response to be rapid, coordinated, professional, and kind. We want the responders to be well trained. We want the response to be well coordinated and joined up. And now put yourself in the shoes of someone requesting or needing humanitarian assistance. It could be because of a flood, It could be because of a fire. It could be because of conflict. They also want to receive quality assistance. They want it to be delivered by professional, trained, coordinated responders who treat them with respect and meet their needs. And this is where the sphere standards come in. And it all started back in 1994, where in Rwanda, Africa, there was a civil war, which led to a genocide, which led to a mass migration event to nearby countries, which led to an outbreak of cholera in the refugee camps. And after this event, an evaluation took place. And the evaluation recommended that the humanitarian sector develop quality standards and that they be shared standards across organizations so that everyone involved in the response was speaking the same language. And so in the year 2000, the first Sphere Handbook came out. And if you could show the slides, Risa, I think I have a picture of the first of the Sphere Handbook, but I can show you my copy, which is here. I'm not sure you can see that very well. And my colleague is posting a link to the Sphere Handbook in the chat. So the first Sphere Handbook came out in the year 2000, and it's split into two key parts. The foundation chapters, which are the legal, the moral, the ethical framework to humanitarian response. And then the second half of the book is all about the technical standards. And the technical standards are split into 4 life-saving areas. So water supply, sanitation, hygiene promotion, food security and nutrition, health, shelter and settlement. So you can see here, maybe it's a big book. It's not just standards, it's also guidance on how to apply the standards. So there are key actions. There are also indicators to let you know whether or not you're meeting the standard. And then there are guidance notes so that you can contextualize the standards to your situation. But SPEAR is not just a reference book on a shelf. It's also a global community, okay? It's a global community that has built up over the last 26 years of humanitarian professionals and humanitarian organizations who are all committed to meeting the quality standards in humanitarian response. So historically, that might mean UN organizations like UNHCR, UN OCHA, the World Food Programme, but also international NGOs like Save the Children or Plan International or World Vision, and also national and local NGOs, as well as community-based organizations, as well as scout groups, as well as government disaster response agencies, as well as civil defense organizations. So really over the last 26 years, the SPHERE standards have spread right across the sector, in affecting all of those who respond to crises. But the world is changing quickly, okay? We're now in 2024. We have the climate crisis. We have increasing disrespect for international law and international humanitarian law. We have great global instability. And we have more and more crises that are affecting us all. And so now we really need to come together and start working together to find these urgent, rapid, coordinated, kind, dignified solutions. And that's why we're here today in this workshop, to see how we can be better at bringing together the incredible resources and the expertise that lies in the private sector with the knowledge, the experience of the humanitarian sector. So I'm really delighted because we've got some great examples today of those two coming together and delivering better, more dignified response. But we need more of that. We need to scale it up. And so we're hoping after this workshop, we can carry on with this great work that you're going to see the beginnings of today. So I think I'll hand back to Risa at this stage to carry on.
Thanks a lot, Felicity. And I love the exercise because it showed how the choices we make in response can either strengthen or undermine people's dignity. So thanks for taking that into consideration. And thanks to everyone who also shared your answers in the chat. And now let's bring in our fantastic panel. And we have Raquel from Sphere, we have Hush from APED Sri Lanka, and Cynthia from Senesad. And I'll ask each of them one main question and a follow-up question, but we'll keep it conversational. We'll keep it plenty of stories and real world lessons. All right. So we'll start with Raquel first. Okay, Raquel. Now, Sphere, and we've heard this from Felicity, but Sphere is often described as the gold standard for humanitarian response. However, private sector actors might not be familiar with this standard. And if a company is donating bottled water or setting up a mobile health unit, how does Sphere actually matter to a business or a company wanting to help? And more importantly, to the people that the company is trying to help. Over to you, Raquel.
Thank you, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So, for answering these questions, I wanted to ask you to come with me to the field. Can we play the video? Ne Next one. Next one. Yes.
Drone footage over Acapulco, Mexico shows damage after Hurricane Otis slammed into the coast as a record-breaking Category 5 storm. Officials say at least 27 people are dead and 4 missing.
Thank you. So this was the situation in Mexico more than 2 years ago. It was a sudden Category 5 hurricane. It was the strongest hurricane ever on Mexico Pacific coast. It had an explosive intensification. In just 24 hours, it jumped from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane, almost impossible to prepare to it. Okay, and next to it, it represents a massive destruction. You know more than four numbers than I do. It was 12 to 16 billions of US dollars on destruction, and more than 52 lives were lost, dozens missing, and over 1 million people affected. So what was the country response in that moment? Everyone wanted to help, individuals, companies, civil society, but as an NGO, and when you are working in the fields, you can take everything. The job is to protect the people in the field, the people that was harmed by the hurricane, and also to don't overwhelm them with well-meant and harmful donations. So now that we are in the field and we are in Acapulco in Mexico, we will do an exercise. And for this exercise, all of you that are here today, you are the NGO operations director, and you have to take some decisions. All of these decisions are from real life, and I have experienced them. And just to remember you that you are the bridge between civil society and affected communities. So you have 4 areas that you have to take decisions. You have food security and nutrition, WASH, that is water, hygiene and sanitation, health and shelter. So in food security, a company called you and offered 3 trucks of candy in the first week. So please write in the chat yes or no if you will accept this first week 3 trucks of candy to get to Acapulco. Will you accept them? Do you think that it's proper? Yes or no in the chat, please write. No. Okay, no candy. I agree with you. So what we really need in this moment is ready to eat items, right calories, no low utility donations. So candies are not the best donations, but if you believe me, I received many calls of people offering candy, chips, everything. So now we will go to water, hygiene, and sanitation. In these 2 weeks, all the communications were down, all the roads were closed, and it was heavily flooded. So a water company calls you and offers tiny 300 milliliter bottles. Do you think that it's a good idea to accept them? I will give you a little hint. Think of the waste and what will happen with these little bottles after. Will you accept them? I hear. I am seeing in the chat. No, someone has a different opinion. Okay, Many no's, one yes. Okay. So if you go to sphere standards, you will find that you need per person 7.5 to 15 liters of water per day. So accepting 300 milliliters is not the best. And also it was a lot of waste because many people deliver that in the field. Now we will go to health. A company calls you an offer on packed medicine. Do you think that it's safe to use? Will you receive it? Here I see your participations. What kind of medicine? Many times you don't know because it's unpacked and in different boxes. But they are calling and they have a full truck of it. Okay. No, they should send it with a doctor. Okay, we will not accept it. What we need in this week, primary care, prevent the outbreak, and save donations. So these are real life examples. And one takeaway from my side when I was in this response is that if companies will know sphere standards, it's easy to communicate because we will speak the same language. So these are real life dilemmas. Companies that know sphere standards speak the same language as NGOs. So their help becomes effective and not harmful for the population because you are not delivering things that they don't need. And I want to tell you that many companies are already doing this, making smart standard-based contributions. So now more than ever, we need this kind of donations and the private sector to be prepared because with this, we will spend less time in canceling donations, explaining why we don't need it in these moments that time is very, very, very important. So this is a little bit for your response, Risa. Thank you for coming to the field with me.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Raquel. That was such a helpful way to ground us in what Sphere means for companies on the ground. And you've shown us why standards aren't really abstract, but they're real. Very concrete examples. And let's build on that and look at the role of business networks here. And I'm gonna rope in now Hush, who is the country director of the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management, or APAD Sri Lanka. Now, Hush, we're gonna go to you next. Now, when disasters strike, we know that private sector networks like APAD are often on the front lines. And you know this very well. But help us understand, how can sphere standards act as a compass for companies and business networks, guiding them toward principled, people-centered action instead of ad hoc efforts? Over to you, Hush.
Thanks, Risa. Thanks to CBI and Sphere. In terms of the question that you asked, I think there are so many partners who are coming in. Given the current crisis, you would see so many responders coming in from different sectors. But I think everybody comes in for a particular reason, to make things better for the people or the victims who are affected. And what we do has to be people-centric. So whether it's the private sector or otherwise, it is to ensure that we do not do any harm through our interventions, and also to ensure that we make things better. So what I would like to speak today is two examples. One, in terms of rights, that is all we know, that all people affected by crisis have a right to receive assistance and protection. And Sphere affirms that in terms of the right to life with dignity, the right to receive humanitarian assistance, and also the right to protection and security. If you guys can remember, a few years ago in Sri Lanka, when we had the conflict, we had a huge IDP camp, that is internally displaced personnel camp, and it was called the Manic Farm. And I would like to talk about how a private sector came in and how Sphere was introduced, and how they realized the importance of Sphere. They were a company which was dealing in plumbing and then water pumps and so on. So they took over the responsibility of ensuring that they provide water for the IDP camp. And there was a river flowing there. And I think the camp was one of the largest, 600 acres plus, and so many people, hundreds, thousands of people. So they pumped the water, they had the storage tanks, and they left it, and they said, we have done our work. But in the following days, when we had the meetings and when we were discussing, we all discussed about the issues related to protection. And Sphere emphasizes on that. And we also know very clearly that the risk that the women have to go through when they collect water and firewood in crisis, and mostly it's when it is conflict related. So we said that is about how you can bring the water to the location as opposed to these people going towards to collect water through the jungles and trekking. And it's not only about, it's not only about the people, the women being at risk. It is also about exhaustion. It also is about violence they have to go through, and so many other issues that they have to go through when they go to fetch water. These are the humanitarian statistics that we have. So they just fixed a pump, brought in the lines, and ensured that the water was there exactly where the water needs to be in terms of access to water. So for the private sector, it was just about having a few pumps and then doing the plumbing and getting it right. So they said, well, if these standards were known by us, we would have incorporated into our plans earlier, and then we would have set it up. So that was some win-win situation that we got in terms of private sector understanding the Sphere standards, especially in terms of protection. Then the other area that I also want to talk about is why private sector would want to come in and be a part of the humanitarian sector. See, the private sector is very, very flexible in terms of response. You would also see the resources that they would have in terms of the supply chain, the people that they have as volunteers, and also the existing system, the supply chain and the resources that they have that they could provide. But what would not allow them to come into the humanitarian sector is there is one obstacle, that is about the brand reputation. If their reputation, in terms of it being the reputation or the brand image or the logo, would have an effect if they do something wrong, it would entirely ensure that their businesses would not following the intervention that they do during a crisis. So this is where we also got involved with the government, and to ensure that whatever assistance is provided, it is provided right. Now, earlier in the crisis in Sri Lanka and maybe everywhere, when something happens, the normal scenario is about bringing in the stuff and just loading it, okay, whether it is food, non-food items, and it's not packed. It is just about, okay, clearing up the supermarket shelves and handing it over. But when that happens, these items do not reach to the people on time. And also sometimes it's just in government officers or in humanitarian officers. They don't have the time. They also don't have the resources to take it to the last mile. So we spoke with the Ministry of Disaster Management and the humanitarian sector and came out with the food and non-food item packs. In terms of the food packs, we looked at the WFP requirement of the calories required and also matched it with the items which are available in the different areas of the country, and work with the private sector and to ensure that those items are ready. It can be a 72-hour pack, the hygiene pack, the food pack, packs which are related to women, children, girls, and so on. So once this was done and approved by the government, we shared it with the private sector. And it is not only private sector donors, but also to ensure that it was also provided to to the suppliers itself. So that was done, and we ensured that these items in future would be coming in a way where it is packed and can be reached out to the people. So these are the two examples, Reza, that I wanted to talk about, and maybe we can discuss some more later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Hush. And just quickly, the food packs I'm seeing on my screen right now, these are the examples, correct?
Exactly. Yes, these are the examples of the packs, and these are the approved packs in Sri Lanka, and also by the humanitarian as well as the government sectors. So these are the minimum
Fantastic.
standards. Yes, and also looking at the calories which are spoken about in the sphere standards, and that's how we created these packs.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Hush. And I love how you describe the standards as a compass. Thanks as well for showing us the real examples, photos here on the screen, how it looked like and how you, the network, and your partners, private sector partners, are adhering to what the government is saying, and also in terms of best practices according to the sphere standards. So again, I like how you framed it as a compass, a guiding action, even when everything feels uncertain. And that there's really beauty in standardizing the support or the assistance that we provide to those in need. So let's take that idea and now zoom into another concrete example. So I'm going to go to Cynthia next. So Cynthia, who is the Director General of the National Center for Epidemiological Emergencies and Disasters, or SENASED. We saw from Raquel a while ago what happened during Hurricane Otis. And now you know the story very, very well. So during Hurricane Otis, SENASED, as we all know, mobilized the private sector and coordinated over 150 tons of humanitarian aid, such as food, bottled water, and hygiene kits. And you've also established over 80 collection centers in the affected areas. Now, Cynthia, looking back, what made this possible? And maybe you can help us visualize and understand what helped companies, your private sector allies, act quickly, more inclusively, and responsibly, especially for the hardest to reach communities.
Thank you, Risa. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. And let me respond to your question. During the Hurricane Otis, rapid and effective mobilization was made possible by the trust built between SENASED and the private sector. It wasn't just about reacting to the emergency, it was about activating a network that was already sensitized, coordinated, and commitment. At SENASED, that we work through the Unidos por Ellos model. It's a protocol structured around three pillars. One, immediate response. Two, delivery of humanitarian aid. And three, reconstruction and recovery of livelihoods. This framework enables fast and efficient coordination. Thanks to it, we mobilized over 9,250 tons of humanitarian aid for Hurricane Otis. The response was not improvised. It was the result of the prior preparedness effort that includes shared protocols, alignment with national frameworks, identification of key partner. I believe that is really important, and clear communication. These elements made it possible to activate a coordinated and efficient and humanitarian focused response. This multi-sectoral coordination model that we have at SENASED allow the private sector to respond swiftly, even in the remote communities. Unidos por Ellos is not just a protocol, it is a platform that connects local needs for disaster risk management in highly vulnerable communities with the participation of diverse actors involved in this model. All these remind us that resilience is not a built at the moment of crisis, but long before through coordination, preparedness, and trust. What have learned for us? The most important, I believe that investing in prevention for the private sector and preparedness through strengthened partnership and clear cooperation frameworks defines role, and with the final roles, it's not an option, it's a priority in these cases. That for us is really important just to remark that the cooperation and the prevention is is the most important.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. And really, the story brings it to life, especially when you focused on the examples of how you coordinated everyone through the Unidos por Ellos platform. And I'm wondering, as maybe just as a follow-up question, what practices from that experience made sure that your assistance was safe, fair, and respectful of people's dignity? Maybe just as a follow-up question for you, Cynthia.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, during the response to the hurricanes, SENA said implement an action aligned with international humanitarian standards, particularly the principle of the Sphere Handbook, which place human dignity and equity, also accountability at the center. For us, is the most important. The kits that were delivered, food, hygiene, and cleaning items were designed considering their custom and the culture. In accordance with the food and security and nutritional section of the Sphere Handbook, our food packages were configured to support families of 4 members during 2 weeks. And the practices that ensure safe, equitable, and dignity respecting assistance include community participation and equitable distribution. This experience reaffirmed that humanitarian aid is not limited just to delivery of supplies. It's far more than that, no? It's a tangible expression of humanity. And for us, this is the best practice that we can share with all of you.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. So really appreciate it. Dignity, equitable approach, and as well as accountability. Love the focus on the values, and we've now heard the global perspective from the perspective of the networks, the business networks, and your partners, your allies on the ground. Really a powerful reminder of why is it important to work together. Now, maybe it's time for us to open the floor to all of you. And we do have the Q&A function, by the way, in this webinar. I also see a couple of questions in the chat. So again, don't be shy. This is the perfect chance to bring your experience into the room. I know um, we have participants representing the business community, as well as the UN, and even from the government. And while you think, so again, feel free to post your question in the chat or in the Q&A box that you see here. Maybe if I can just ask Raquel, Hush, and Cynthia one additional question. If I'm a company and I want to understand more after this meeting, how can I apply the Sphere standards right away? And I don't really have that huge amount of resources I don't have enough staff. I don't really have enough resources in my operations. What's one very practical advice that my company, that you would want to give my company so that I can immediately start applying the Sphere standards right away? Maybe let's start with you, Hush, and then Raquel, and then we go to Cynthia next.
I might share Felicity's number. But I think in terms of what we have done in Sri Lanka is we did the sphere standard intro, not only to the private sector, but we shared this with the local government authorities. Because, for example, the local government authority would want to know what is required, what are the standards. This is about not only about the standards, but it is also resource mobilization, securing the resources. So if it is for a private sector, what I would say is we can provide you the basic understanding of sphere standards, what is related to the water, sanitation, the food security, and so on, and also in terms of protection. And reach out to us. We will immediately provide that assistance to you. And it's just a basic guide. And also to keep in mind that sphere standards is a minimum standards, but if there are local standards, that will certainly supersede the sphere standards. So that's also another area that you need to look at.
Thanks a lot, Hush. And again, very practical advice in the beginning. Share the email addresses and get in touch with the Sphere Secretariat. We have Felicity, Raquel, and I think we also have the national focal points of the Sphere with us in this session. So that's one very important reminder that there is a large community of practice here. But maybe, Raquel, from the perspective of the Sphere Secretariat, very practical way, how can I immediately start applying the Sphere standards into my operations?
Okay, so I have three advices for you. The first one is that learning the standards will help you to optimize the resources. So if you have less resources, start to learn the standards because you will optimize them. The second of it is that all of our resources are free in our webpage, and also you can contact us. Get in contact with us. You have all our emails, and we will try to help you from the Secretariat, but also we have a wide network around the world. We have focal points, members, trainers in many of the countries you are in, so we can connect them with you, and you can have a local understanding of Sphere standard in your context. So please send us an email, reach out to us.
Thanks a lot, Raquel. Now, before I go to Cynthia, I think there is a question here from Mauricio on the coordination platform. During Hurricane Otis, using the Unidos por Ellos, but let's just take this question first. Raquel, someone is asking, does Sphere provide training on the Sphere standards to businesses, to companies, to private sector actors?
Yes, contact us and we can see how we can make it happen according tailored to you. We want to start working with you because it's needed in today's reality of the sector.
Thanks, Raquel. Okay, now going back to Cynthia. Cynthia, I have a question here from Mauricio, who said, I think this was during your presentation on the Hurricane Otis experience. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the coordination. So who was responsible for it, especially when you said that you were coordinating so many different companies and actors?
Okay, let me explain. Our protocol works with the three main pillars that I mentioned before. And the immediate response, it's in the first 72 hours that we have the first meeting with all the actors involved that assure for us that to know what is happening in the point or in the place that is happened the disaster. And in the second pillar that is really important is we deliver the humanitarian aid. And in this part, all the private sector make the effort just to bring all the necessary needs just to deploy. to the place in the disaster. And the three pillars, it's the reconstruction and the recovery of livelihoods. And we worked with the private sector to impulse a special projects just for reconstruction. And that's how we work in the model of Unidos por Ellos. We work together with government, with private sector, with another NGOs, and with UN's agency. This is a complete model that it's leading by Senaset.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. And actually, one more thing to add, because Senna said, if I remember, also worked with the Sphere Secretariat in conducting trainings for their partners and members to understand, now that we have this coordination platform, then how can we actually adhere to the minimum requirements based on the Sphere standards. So really beautiful example. Now I see a lot of questions in the chat. Now this one is an interesting question, okay, to Hush, Raquel, and Cynthia. It's from Cherie. It's interesting because she's asking, or Cherie is asking, how is AI being used by the private sector when it comes to preparedness and response? Not necessarily on the Sphere, but maybe we can include or tie it with the Sphere standards. But anything on how we can actually see the merging of AI, the superpowers of the private sector, and then of course standards such as Sphere when it comes to enhancing preparedness and response. Who wants to take on this question? Go ahead, Raquel.
Perfect. So from my past experience, I worked with a lot of companies and a lot of donors, and I can tell you that what NGOs want and what the humanitarian sector want is not only companies that want to get things in trucks. They want people that want to learn about what is happening in the humanitarian sector. This is referring also to the standards, also preoccupied to the people that it's in the field, because then the private sector will understand. When you're in the field, the things are not like the chain on command on the business, because many things change. So if you are aware of what is happening in the field as a company, and if you are aware of all the things that can change, it's easier to the NGOs. So in my past experience, I took many companies to the field with us, many companies in trainings, and it was easier then to engage with them because we can plan many things together and use the experience of the NGOs and also of the private sector in these situations, because we have different kind of experiences, different tools, and if we bring them together and we combine them with standards, people-centered approach, and we are looking at the people that needs things, it becomes something very, very beautiful, as Cynthia said in the example of what Senaset did.
Fascinating. I'm just wondering, because I know that there are participants here from the business community and who are familiar with other forms of standards such as ISO and or the International Standardization Organization, standards such as 9001 for quality and so on. Okay, and in the world of business standards or ISO standards, there had been discussions on how do we actually use chatbots or AI in making our work easier when it comes to compliance with standards. So one thing to think about, maybe it's a Sphere standard chatbot, or I don't know, okay? But really good question. I see I see tons of questions in the chat from Xiao Man. What role do you see the private sector has beyond just being donors? Love this question. And how can we engage more by using resources and networks? So really contributions going beyond what a company can provide for free, and and other arrangements with the government. Maybe I'll ask Hush. I'll pose this question to Hush, and then I'll comb through the other questions in the chat. But thanks, dear audience, for keeping us engaged. Over to you, Hush.
I think it's an excellent question. Basically, see, private sector cannot be seen as an ATM, and it's very clear. And now it has to be through partnership that we deliver. And it's very right that when you say private sector can provide its resources, so the resources mean looking at their, looking at their supply chain, their warehouses, the items that they have, the areas they work in, the people they know. That is what we need to make use of. The people who are on ground, their volunteers, their workers, their families who are on ground. So that's exactly how our platforms work. What can the private sector provide? How can it be complemented? In fact, complementing the government's needs, and also how can others come in? There have been so many examples of how we work together. See, the question actually asked, what is it that can we give and what can the others do? Like, for example, we make use of the government transport mechanisms or their vehicles and so on if a private sector wants to support some with some items. Likewise, if it is technology, we make use of the technology the private sector has to ensure that we reach out to the people with the coordination of the government. So it's not only one. Private sector is not only providing, it's not seen as a donor, but as an equal partner. That's how it goes down.
Equal partner indeed. And I think that's why I see a lot of comments in the chat asking how this sphere again provide training on the sphere standards to businesses or even private sector sponsors of humanitarian projects. So great that we're seeing a lot of questions on what's next. In the chat, we've shared also the contact details of Felicity and Raquel from the Sphere Secretariat, and then also a link to the Sphere online course. Do check it out. And one more thing, I'm still going through the questions. This is more, I guess, for Raquel and probably Felicity. There's a question from Randall: who monitors the sphere standards when it comes to IDP security centers? Or basically, if we're looking at the sphere standards as the minimum requirements, who gets to say that we're compliant, or who actually monitors the compliance if there's a mechanism? Maybe either Felicity or Raquel, feel free to jump in and answer this.
Yeah, the space standards are quite unique in that there is no certification or compliance procedure for space standards. They're voluntary standards that organizations decide to use and to put in place. So there's not someone from Sphere Geneva or Sphere, central office coming to check. We provide the standards. Organizations themselves will be monitoring the use and the impact of them. I don't know if Harsh would like to add to that.
Yeah, as you said, Felicity, it's a guideline. See, most of the donors, if not all the donors in the humanitarian sector, in response, actually, they insist adherence to sphere standards. Though it is not mandatory, it is a minimum standard that you can achieve. You cannot achieve minimum standards immediately after a crisis, but you can make an effort to achieve that during the process. So that is what it is. So it's also about monitoring. Yes. Now, if you look at a camp management itself, it will also have the humanitarian sector leads. It would also have, if you look at the UN OCHA, the different cluster leads also would be there. So these are being discussed in the process. Okay, this is the standards. So many people, how many toilets are there? How can we achieve that number fast? What is the requirement? So it is being discussed during the process, and also there is co-chair of government and the humanitarian sector during this crisis. So now I think the business sector also should be a part of that to better understand, also to optimize their resources.
Yeah, if I can just
Right.
add what Harsh said
Go
is
ahead, Felicity.
all of the standards have indicators attached to them. Okay, so different kinds of indicators. It might be a quantity of water or a number of kilocalories, or do you have this procedure in place or not, or the percentage of children vaccinated. So that is how the standards are, if you like, monitored. The indicators are used by organizations to see to what extent they are meeting or not the standards. And as Harsh said, it's a process of continuous improvement to get towards meeting the standard.
Thanks both. And you know, Cynthia has been very quiet, but Cynthia, Senaced, working with Cadena, Raquel, and the Sphere Secretariat have done several of these trainings as well, starting from promoting awareness on what the standards is. And then, you know, I like the questions in the chat that everyone is asking about compliance or audit now, but like what Felicity and Hush said, these are you know, these are standards that we can promote to our private sector partners, and then perhaps we can devise a way to assess how how are these standards actually helping them in a very practical manner. I'm seeing comments in the chat about a private sector humanitarian certification, or how the CHS or the core humanitarian standards is also audited, right? So again, loving the engagement in the chat, but I'm mindful of time. So to our panelists, to Hush, Cynthia, and Raquel, maybe just one last question, okay? Before we wrap it up, if here you go. If we meet again in 5 years, what do you think would success look like in your point of view, in when it comes to business humanitarian collaboration, particularly as we talked about the application of standards such as FEAR to ensure that the assistance that we provide is effective, efficient, and most importantly, upholds the dignity of the people that we serve. Let's start with Hush. We go to Cynthia, and then we end with Raquel.
I feel private sector will take a huge lead here, because we also have to understand that even if there are standards, if there is money, if there is also plans, the execution of those plans are done by the private sector. They are the people who will take the items from A to B, and that's the supply chain that we are all looking at. So humanitarianism should be institutionalized within the private sector. And I feel in 5 years, I think private sector will be a force to be reckoned with. And they will also, now as they are being introduced into the humanitarian sector and also the development sector as well, because we should not always forget the recovery. Recovery is more important. And this is where, again, sphere becomes very important, because it allows you to use your resources in a way that whether it is emergency phase or whether that is okay, whether that is accounted for, and then we can quietly move into the recovery phase. So I feel private sector will take a big lead in the years to come.
Thanks, Hush. Cynthia, if we meet again in 5 years' time, what would a successful private sector humanitarian collaboration look like?
I will say that in 5 years, I would like to answer that transformation about the private sector. You know, at Senaced, we offer corporate volunteering. It's an opportunity just to engage and to sensibilize all the employees and just about the dignity, the quality. And for us in SANASED, we believe that prevention is everything, it's a focus. And our commitment is to planting the seed of prevention in each person that we receive at the center. And I would like to say that in 5 years, all these people or these private companies that we receive, we like to spread this seed to everyone, just to have a better citizens, more informed and more sensibilized about what is donation, what is disaster, and what are the risks right now, and what means risk in the whole world.
Love the message, Cynthia. And I guess the final remarks will go to Raquel, will come from Raquel and Felicity. 5 years from now, having heard from the business representatives here, what you think would be a successful business humanitarian collaboration around promoting the standards will look like? Thank you. So I will love to answer that. It will be amazing if we will not be needed in the world, but with the climate crisis, many disasters will come, so we need to be more prepared. So we will love to be working with the private sector more closely, speaking the same language. Indeed, we are proposing the SPHERE standards as the common language of the humanitarian sector and the private sector, and also to have a people-centered approach together to see what people needs in the field, in the emergencies, and what are the real needs to serve them as they deserve, as that they need. And I don't know if you have anything else to add, Felicity.
I think for me, success would look like not talking about the private sector and the humanitarian sector, but this just being joint response.
Love this. Yes, it's all working. It's all about working together. So again, what an inspiring set of stories and insights. And I love the engagement in the chat. So from talking about standards, global standards to real world action. And again, dear colleagues, I think we've seen very important information shared in the chat from Zunaira. SPHERE. There's the if you want to know more about the focal points, the members, the trainers on SPHERE, they've shared the important links in the chat. But one thing is clear after our discussion today: everyone wants to know more about the SPHERE. How can businesses actually learn more about SPHERE standards, and also learning from the experience of CBI member networks like APAD Sri Lanka and SANASED, who have done amazing work during the previous emergencies. One thing is clear, that when businesses and humanitarian agencies come together and guided by principles, we don't just deliver aid, but we act with dignity. So thank you to our panelists, to Raquel, Cynthia, Hush, Felicity, for sharing so generously your insights and wisdom, and to all of you for all of your engagement. This is not the end. Do stay in touch with us. We will make sure to share more exciting announcements when it comes to this space. This is just the beginning of how we raise the bar together. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand over to Kareem, the program coordinator of the Connecting Business Initiative, for our closing reflections and a few call to actions. Kareem, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Riza, and thank you, colleagues. I have to say, Riza, you've just pretty much wrapped up the entire panel for me, so I'm not sure what else there is to say in terms of closing remarks after that, but I do want to maybe quickly once again repeat the thanks that we've already heard to Felicity and Raquel from SPHERE, to Hush from APAD Sri Lanka, Cynthia from SANASED, and of course, Riza for doing such a wonderful job today as our moderator. Thanks as well to our interpreters and all of you for really taking the time out of your day today to have this discussion with all of us. I am delighted really to see that SPHERE is here, because as you've heard, they are the organization that is setting the standards for what an effective and efficient humanitarian response that respects people's dignity looks like. And so I'm delighted to see that they're joining our mission of promoting business engagement and humanitarian response, because it is really important for us to make humanitarian standards and coordination bodies more open to businesses, especially local businesses. And now more than ever, as governments around the world are sort of stepping back from investing in resilience and humanitarian response and recovery, it's very clear that business is at the front line of any humanitarian response or any humanitarian emergency. And it may only be the private sector now that has the ability and the responsibility, actually, to take care of your employees, your suppliers, your customers, if you want to stay in business. In a world that looks like this one, this is the cost of staying in business. It's making sure that we are all contributing toward a more resilient society. And I think it's very clear that private sector engagement improves humanitarian response. And it's something that we should be encouraging around the world. But as we've seen, in particular with some recent high-profile missteps around hot-button issues, it's really important for us to ensure that humanitarian standards and guardrails are in place when we think about what corporate engagement looks like at every level, from micro and small, medium enterprises all the way up to huge multinationals. Hush gave us very clear examples on how the Sphere standards really helped Sri Lankan businesses design more effective humanitarian responses, improving the assistance that was provided to those in need, while also protecting the brand and reputation of companies that want to help and may not be aware of best practices or maybe the pitfalls to avoid. And like Raquel, Hush really emphasized that adherence to humanitarian standards and principles it's not a burden or additional burden. It's actually something that will make your company's engagement more effective and efficient, not less. Cynthia really outlined for us how SENASED relied on trust that's built between the private sector, affected communities, and governments to deliver huge amounts of aid during Hurricane Otis. And I have to say, at this stage, it's quite clear that individual trust in business is often higher than in governmental institutions and international intergovernmental organizations as well. And so I think that means businesses have a special responsibility to take care, again, that when they engage, they are doing it in a way that is really consistent with best practices and standards and will avoid any missteps or potential reputational damage. Really, by relying on Sphere standards, we heard that SENASED ensured the assistance provided was configured in a safe and equitable way that respected the dignity of affected people, who are, after all, in Mexico in particular, the customers of these companies who are themselves providing this response. On behalf of OCHA and UNDP, I think I'll just quickly close by saying that the Connecting Business Initiative team is here to facilitate private sector engagement before, during, and after emergencies. As you see, the emails have been exchanged in our very active chat here, but we're always happy to connect you with our colleagues at Sphere, at APAD Sri Lanka, at SENASED, or any other one of our partners to learn more about the Sphere standards or to learn more about best practices and how businesses can engage in humanitarian response. So please do reach out to us at any time. You can reach our team by emailing connectingbusiness@un.org, or if you're a business that is a member of one of our 21 CBI member networks around the world, including, of course, APAD Sri Lanka and SENASED, you can also reach out through your member network. And if you want to do a deeper dive of any of these things, we very much encourage you to check out our website, connectingbusiness.org. We actually have an online course for those of you who want to do a deeper dive on private sector engagement in fragile and conflict-affected areas, and also business continuity planning basics for micro, small, and medium enterprises. I will just say again a huge thanks to all of our participants. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all of our speakers, and I wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you again. Bye.
Bye.